Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic This Week in WordPress and SaaS. This is episode 901. Goodness gracious. We've got a great special guest. We've got Melissa Love, the founder of the Design Space and the Style Cloud. Melissa's been building business in the WordPress space for a number of years. We're going to be talking about how you can find your niche in the WordPress space. How you can build an effective business in that space, some of the mistakes that Melissa has made, so she can share with you so you don't have to make them. So Melissa, do you think you can just give us a quick 10-20 second intro about yourself before we go into the main part of the interview?
Yeah, sure. I'm Melissa. I have been in the WordPress space for about 15 years. I've done everything from building websites for other people to owning plugins, and now I'm getting right into the SaaS market. My background is in graphic design, so I'm a self-taught web designer, giving hope to self-taught web designers everywhere, I hope. And I live in the UK, in Cornwall, which is a very southwest part of the country, with my family.
That's great. And I've got my great co-host, Kurt. Kurt, do you want to introduce yourself to the new listeners and viewers?
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. My name is Kurt Von Onen. I work directly with the great folks at Lifter LMS and WP-Tonic, as well as owning my own agency, Mañana No Mas.
That's fantastic. So before we go into the main meat and potatoes of this great interview, I've got a couple of messages from our major sponsors. We'll be back in a few moments. See you soon.
This podcast episode is brought to you by Lifter LMS, the leading learning management system solution for WordPress. If you or your client are creating any kind of online course, training-based membership website, or any type of e-learning project, Lifter LMS is the most secure, stable, well-supported solution on the market. Go to lifterlms.com and save 20% at checkout with coupon code podcast20. That's podcast20. Enjoy the rest of your show.
We're coming back, folks. I just want to point out we've got a new sponsor tribe. We've got Omnisend coming back. They're going to be sponsoring the show for about 6 to 12 months. I want to say Omnisend, what do? They provide a great SMS email service, specializing in e-commerce, but not solely in that. Every $72 spent on text and email, every $1 spent, you seem to get a $72 return. That sounds fantastic. They've got a great special offer. You can find that, plus the other sponsors. They also have offers, plus a curated list of the best WordPress plugins and services. You can find all these goodies by going over to wp-tonic.com/deals, wp-tonic.com/deals, and you'll find the new Omnisend offer. I think they're offering 30% off for the first 3 months. And free migrations as well. You find all the details on that particular page. So let's go straight into this great interview. So Melissa, you gave a quick interview. So how did you initially get into web design, and then what led you into the world of WordPress?
Well, I actually grew up with graphic designer parents, but back in those days, there was no such thing as graphic design. My mum was a typesetter and my dad was a paste up artist. So literally in our spare room, they would have like little golf ball fonts, and my dad would cut it all up and stick it to a board. Then he'd take it down to the print shop and have it blown up into a plate.
Oh, it sounds such fun, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was never allowed to touch anything in the office. I did get kind of put to work at quite an early age.
As a child, how did you ever resist that, Melissa, or did you not?
Oh, well, we weren't given a choice. I think at about 12 years old, I was sat down and I was like, right, we need a hand and you're going to get involved. So I was kind of brought up, I can recognize the size of a typeface from about 50 paces. It was a really good grounding in graphic design, but obviously it looked like really hard work. And they won't mind me saying, but the work they did was really boring, like big medical catalogs. And I was like, yeah, bye, I'm leaving home and I'm never going to do that in my spare bedroom. And then, of course, I went and did everything but that. And then I found myself with 2 young kids, didn't want to go back out and work in my former career, which is working in hotels and hospitality and travel. I couldn't do that. So I was like, what should I do? Oh, I might just dust off those graphic design skills and start doing that. So I did a crazy thing. I started a magazine, which was one of those freebies that you put through people's letterboxes and you pay for it by ads. I kind of pounded the streets, and actually it was really pretty successful. And I built myself a website, and I built it with, I'm a bit embarrassed to tell you this, but I built it with moon fruit. Do you remember that?
No.
It's like
that's a builder that, or whatever it is, that hasn't come across my radar, Melissa.
Oh my god, it's a bit like Wix before Wix Wix probably bought them, I don't know. So so I kind of was flogging these ads for like £30 a go, and then someone said to me, I really love the website you've built for the magazine, could you build me one? And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, how much do you charge? I was like, well, it's quite a lot of money, it's £299. And I was like, they're never going to go for it, that's crazy money. And they were like, yeah, that sounds great. I was like, what? So I kind of started building these terrible websites. No, they weren't terrible, they looked good, they just were made of that terrible platform. And then WordPress came along. I remember standing in my publisher's office and he said, have you heard of this WordPress thing? And I was like, no, what's this? And so I went, he said, that's what all the proper website people are using. And I was like, really? God, I better become a proper website person. And back then you had to build a database, you had to download WordPress from .org, you had to upload it manually. I was like, oh, this is really not the same as Wix. But I persevered, and anyway, here we are all these years later. So that's how I got into it, kind of by accident, really.
Right. Sounds an interesting path. I have to find, is this particular page builder platform, is it still in existence or is it long gone?
It might be, I mean, it still was a few years ago the last time I looked. You've piqued my curiosity now. I guess I'm going to have a look after we finish talking.
Yeah, well, there we go. That is my job. Over to you, Kurt.
Melissa just gave me really fond memories of one of my first corporate jobs, and that was working at the Prudential insurance company, where they used to make the catalogs with cut and paste, and they had these really cool high-tech printers that had colored markers in them that would zip around and draw things on paper. And it's amazing to think of how far we've all come so quickly. Yeah,
I mean, my parents, before Macs weren't invented, so they were using something called a Quadratech, and you could type code in. You couldn't see what it would output. You could just type code into it, and it would output a form. So it was very mathematical, and my mum was brilliant at this thing. And I remember going along to a showroom with my parents we were going to get a new one, and and it was the size of a house, so we could either get a slightly smaller version of it or this new thing called a Mac. And we all went, ooh. And my dad uttered the immortal words. He said, those Macs, how can you just trust something where you're waggling like a mouse around on a screen? That'll never catch on. So we spent, I'm not kidding, we spent $64,000 on the upgrade, and the Mac would have been $3,000. And 2 years later, we just went and threw it away at the tip.
Yep. I remember those days. I remember throwing stuff away. It was so weird. Anyway, I digress. What are your thoughts, talking about newer technology now? What are your thoughts on like the page builders? I know that you're active in Cadence now. We just helped a client that has one of your Cadence products, and then and you're famous in the Lifter space for your work with Divi. So what are your thoughts connected to the future of page builders versus Gutenberg versus the rest of the ecosystem?
Well, I'm not, I started off when WordPress was really hard and involved lots of coding, and then a page builder came, or you had to choose a theme and try and adapt it. And then when Divi came along, I was like, what is this magical tool? It's amazing, and obviously loads of other people thought that. And we were the first people to ever sell any third-party product for Divi. I was like all in with it for years and years. And I still am a really proud supporter of Divi, don't get me wrong, but definitely for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been kind of a little bit putting my head in the sand, like, I'm sure that Gutenberg's never going to be as good as a page builder, and slightly ignoring it. And then I just couldn't ignore it anymore. I bought a Cadence lifetime license and I started playing around with it. I was like, damn, this is good. This is like, WordPress has come a long, long way. It's time to really, and the more I played with it, the more I thought, this is got to be the future. And I bet it's giving a few page builder owners some very sleepless nights, wondering how they're going to integrate or fully integrate what they're doing with blocks, because I think they have to.
Yeah, on a personal note, I too kind of put off when Gutenberg first came out in the blocks. It was kind of like people were like, classic editor, try that, try Elementor, try Divi. I'll do the Jonathan, try Divi. But
I'm only joking.
Both Jonathan and myself, have dove in with the Cadence and the Cadence Pro and the Cadence blocks, and then once you click that magical tab that everyone seems to ignore that says patterns on it, it's like things explode and you go, oh, there's all these opportunities, and everything gets kind of fast and easy. But I think there's still a learning curve with that. How would you compare the learning curve with going from a page builder to the Gutenberg? Do you think it's more difficult or same?
Do you know what I think is more difficult? People are used to being in the block environment now, because even if they're using a page builder, hopefully they're still using the block builder for their blog posts. If they're not, they're going to run into trouble at some point. But I think the thing I see most often, because we've dealt with thousands of new users in the last 6 months, is that people don't quite know where something like Cadence, an enhancement to the block builder, begins and the native WordPress features end. So, for example, your row width, it's kind of controlled by WordPress, but Cadence gives it some extra things. The pop-up tooltip on any kind of block gets enhanced, but really it's WordPress powered. Then you've got your editing panel on the right-hand side. I think the integration is difficult to see what's core WordPress and what's not for a beginner who's not super familiar with the native block builder. Like, how do I use the navigation panel? Some of those things are hard to find when you first get into the block builder.
Yeah. I've worked with some clients where I sign into their site and I'm like, oh yeah, you can just adjust that right over. Hey, where are your buttons at? But they don't have Spectra or Cadence blocks or something else added. And so then it's just missing, right? And so, yeah, I can see that. Jonathan, I'll kick over to you.
Yeah, I was just thinking, Melissa, so would you say that, I don't know what the position is, obviously you're developing niche products in the Cadence market, but it sounds like you got established in the Divi world. It's a world that I've known a few entrepreneurs have established really great businesses, but it's a world that I never really established any presence in. So did it really have to take some thinking? Because I know the Divi have been talking about they're in a transitional period themselves where they're moving away and moving into the world of Gutenberg-based blocks. It looks like what they've outlined is that they're going to be doing in some ways something similar to Cadence. So did you really have to think about that? It seems like you're kind of really moving big in the Cadence world to some extent. Or are you going to also you're just watching what's happening with Divi and you also be producing some products in the Divi world?
That's such a good question. To be honest with you, my niche is not builder-led. My niche is the niche I'm in, which is mostly serving photographers. I've been in that niche for a really long time. I have broadened it slightly over the last 5 years, building Divi products. But if you look at our Design Space website, we actually issue all of our themes in Elementor, Divi, and Cadence. So we're about giving photographers their tool of choice to get a beautiful website. So funnily enough, our new offering, which is a kind of suite of themes and a big cloud-based library of sections and layouts in Style Cloud, we actually built that for ourselves as an agency. One night I was like, why am I building this same page again? But, it's a custom build, so I shouldn't really use a template. And I was like, this is insane building like a two column layout. I should just have all this stripped down to this really neutral library of things I can just drop in. So I built it for us as a team. And then I thought, actually, this is pretty good. We should see if any other web designers want to use this. And then kind of all my photography audience just really wanted to jump into it too. So we've made it much more photographer friendly. So for me, I'm driven by my niche and the audience I serve rather than which tool, which means I am open to using new tools all the time. And for a lot of photographers who are coming to us from other themes that aren't page buildery, they really do want, the block experience, because that's where the reputation is for speed and SEO friendliness, and we have to meet that demand. So I gave everything a proper good audition, Spectra, bricks, everything. I've probably owned more lifetime licenses than is healthy, so I could try everything out. And then I just really liked Cadence. I really liked the team. I really like what they stand for. And I really like their view on when they're going to go to full site editing. I just kind of felt like it was the right place for me to make a bit of a home. Just like I felt that with Divi. I had a personal friendship or connection with Nick Roach at the very beginning. I feel like I know the team at Cadence really well, and I'm really well supported. So that's what for me, it came down to gut instinct. Like, that's why I went with Lifter, because I just thought what Chris and his team were doing was outstanding. Like, I felt like I do know him. I do know, like, he was so present in his brand. It's lovely to feel you know the founder. And so I guess I was looking for more people like that.
Yeah, certainly, Nick. I've spoken to him a couple of times, and he is a very impressive individual and entrepreneur. And Ben from Cadence, I've interviewed him a couple of times. He seems a fabulous developer, and he also has that ability of knowing where the market is going, and he seems to have a real roadmap in his own mind where he's taken Cadence. Over to you, Kurt.
Well, Melissa, you mentioned the photography niche. How would you give advice or talk to designers on identifying their niche or finding their best opportunity or expanding that opportunity?
Well, I am the niche queen for sure. I think the thing that people worry about with niching is that you're going to turn a lot of people away, but you don't have to have one niche. All you have to do is have the resources to go into a market and say, I'm literally the expert, which makes going with someone else just too risky. You want them to think, I'd rather go with me because, I know the photography industry inside out. I know all the labs. I know all the integrations. I know how to compress their images. I know what they need. So people are prepared to pay more to work with me than someone who isn't an expert, than someone who's just my friend's cousin who's a web designer. So but you don't have to do it for just one niche. All you need is a cracking landing page for each niche, a portfolio of projects you've worked on for that niche, and a great sales page, and familiarity with the systems they use and the integrations you need to stand out. And once you've mastered one niche, you can then dive into another. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. But I would say, what you're looking for is a niche where these people can be easily found. So a lot of people come to me who I mentor quite a lot of web designers. They're like, I really want to get into the coaching and wellness coach website market. And I'm like, good, but so does everyone else. But these people are actually quite hard to find. That yes, they congregate in Facebook groups. They don't have many conferences they go to. Like, I speak at photography conventions all around the world because thousands of photographers gather together in one place. So wherever thousands of photographers gather, you'll find me not far behind being involved in that. So I think as long as you can access that niche physically sometimes, and then, it's there for the taking. And, we haven't got time today, I'm sure, but I've got lots and lots of tips on how to dominate a niche and how to get a foothold in a niche.
Nice. Well, as the queen of niches, would you say that you can build more than one niche at a time, or do you think you go into a niche, master that niche, and then expand?
I think it almost doesn't matter, because it's always, if you're a one-man band like most people are, it's just how much time have you got to build landing pages, and if you don't have enough projects to make you look like a specialist, you might need to build out some example sites, give yourself some practice projects and do that. So I think it's really how fast can you work. Like, if you're someone who can churn out 10 portfolio pieces, great, and build yourself multiple landing pages, but I think it does help if you kind of do have that kind of fairly spotlight focus on something. because actually, if you try, you have to kind of live. You have to really be the expert. You can't just pretend. Like I literally do go to all the conventions, and I became a photographer myself from working with photographers. So you have to have a passion for that niche. But it doesn't take long to get up to speed. We have a secret little other niche, which is working with kind of boutique aesthetic clinics who do kind of facial aesthetics and stuff, and what the wellness market in terms of medical, like home health testing. It's not something we advertise, but quietly we've developed a little niche for being the kind of medical wellness kind of marketing website experts. And that took us a little while to develop too. So it's something that developed on the side, but we've really dived into that market. We know what systems they use. We know what integrations they want, how they use, what CRMs they use specifically for bookings in clinics, and and what medical protocols you have to follow to keep their data safe. So if someone's talking that kind of language to you, instead of like, yeah, I can build you a really nice website, because I've also built a website for a bakery, like they're going to go with the people who are talking their language. So as if you've got the time to put in to not just pretend to learn their industry, but really know it and understand it, then the decision making becomes no brainer. Like it's very rare we don't convert someone who approaches us because we talk their language.
It's wonderful. Jonathan?
So you got into photography. I'd imagine that you got into it like a lot of these conversations I've had with agencies owner, Melissa, that you did some actual custom website work for photographers, and then you found you liked the clientele and you slowly moved into that niche. I'm just presuming this, but that's fine. But how, I'm not saying this is the stage now, but in those early days when you were developing this niche, how did people actually, your clientele, your photographer clientele, how did they enter your orbit? How did they enter your funnel, your marketing, your broader marketing funnel? Was it through just native SEO? You say you go to these conferences a lot as well, but what was some of the key drivers that enabled people to actually find your products, and then you developed these conversations and they became clientele?
Well, I had two very lucky, what I call fairy godmother moments. My best friend from university came to stay one weekend, and she was a photographer, and she said, my website is terrible. And it was terrible. And she said, I paid someone $5,000, which seemed like a crazy amount because I was charging like $299 to build it for me. And I said, I think I can do a better job than that. And I rebuilt it that weekend while she was there. And she was like, this is crazy good. I'm on this photography course. I'm going to go and tell my friend. She said, right, I've told my friend you charge £2,000. I was like, are you actually insane? Of course I don't. She's like, yes, you do. Look at what I got for $5,000. And she said, that's fine. She thinks it's cheap. I was like, this is crazy. I said to my husband, oh my God. So I kind of built this website, and they both went back to this course they were on and told the owner of the whole photography training school, you need to meet this person. So I met her, and she said, I'd like you to come up and lecture at this lecture 4 times a year on this course, meet all the students, and we'll recommend you as the only person who should build their website. And at the same time, I got hired by one of the most famous photographers in the States. I built a site and a brand for them. They launched it live on Creative Live, that online TV channel. And this all happened in the space of 6 months, and everything went nuts. I had like a waiting list for the next 3 years. And I do appreciate that does not happen to most people. Massive lucky stroke. But, I then wanted to kind of launch templates and courses. And that has been a really hard graft of, yes, I had an audience, but I might have been well known for building sites for photographers, but I had to pitch myself to speak at conferences. Then I had to build my list. Like when I first was going to do a course, I had a list of 2 people, which was me testing things and my mum having a go as well. So I literally started with 2 subscribers and went from 2 to 2,000 in a year before I then launched my first.
Can I interrupt then? So courses have also, obviously WP-Tonic that's our bread and butter community website, and building learning management systems. So you mentioned these courses. So obviously you need a bit of luck, but you've worked really hard and you've got the ability and the insight to capitalize on those lucky breaks, because a lot you need more than luck. You need the insight and the be prepared to do the hard graft as well. So what you just mentioned, these courses, so you mentioned it, so I get the impression that building is, so what were these initial courses about? So were they shown for some, because I don't know much about photography. I like it, but I have known photographers and they seem to want to build their websites themselves. The few that I wouldn't say worked with, but advised, and that they're a little bit control freakish. But I don't know. It's just the ones that I've not exactly worked with, but advised. So were these courses kind of showing photographers how to build their website, or was it something broader?
No, it was exactly that. But I'm a real listener, so I was building these websites, and I did happily move from charging £299 to around the £5,000 mark. But when I was meeting photographers who were new to the industry, they're like, well, everyone said I need to work with you, so here's my money. I was like, do you know what? I don't think I should take your money. Like, you shouldn't be spending $5,000 on a website at the beginning of your career, because your style is going to change. Your brand will definitely change. You just need something simple to start with. You know, you've already spent $5,000 on camera gear. Let's not replicate that with your website. So I just couldn't take their money. I just knew it wasn't the right time for them. But I wanted a product that they could use. So I started building the templates. And then, of course, you know, everyone's like, I love your templates, but I wish I knew how to use them properly and use WordPress. So I was like, okay, so I'll do a course. And that was the first time I used Lifter LMS. And that was when I really built my list, and I invested in Facebook ads, and I was running lead magnet ads, and it was really successful. And I did my launch, and it was really successful. And then people were like, well, thank you for doing that course. I've built a lovely website, but how do I do marketing? I'm completely lost. And that's when I thought, I needed to build a membership, which is what the Marketing Fix is, which is, again, all a big membership built with Lifter LMS. And again, I've had people kind of come along with me on the journey. A lot of the people in the membership I've known for 10 years since I started in the industry. So it's very much been a organic journey, but really listening to what people need and kind of reacting accordingly. And that's where I am now with a brand new product with StarCloud. It's like, actually, the way people are building website is changing. You know, they want to be able to add pages on the fly. It used to be the web designer builds my website, then I don't touch it for 5 years because I might break something. So I was like, people just working in a different way now. They're used to being able to edit things more easily. I call it the Canva effect. People want things they can just drop in and build out quickly that aren't hard to use. So
yeah, I totally agree with you there. Well, the first half of the show's gone quickly. Got some other great questions to ask Melissa. She's obviously a bit of an entrepreneur animal. I'm very impressed with, that's a London term, folks. That's a compliment. That's not to say somebody's a bit of an animal. It means that they know what they're doing. So don't complain. I'm not being sexist there. So can't have that, can we, tribe? We're going for our middle break, folks. We'll be back in a few moments, folks.
Tired of hosting providers that can't handle high traffic loads? Conversio is here to help. Our platform can handle any amount of traffic, all without slowing down or crashing. With immediate Slack support, performance optimization, and a team that thrives on resolving technical challenges, your e-commerce business is in safe hands. Learn more about Conversio at conversio.com.
Back, folks. We've had a feast of knowledge from Melissa. She really is very impressive. She'll have to come back, hopefully, for another chat.
I'd love to.
Before we go into the second half of this great interview, I just want to point out, if you've got a client that's building out a membership website or a community website on BuddyBoss, why don't you look at partnering with WP-Tonic? We offer great hosting, but much, much more. A suite of plugins, so you don't have to argue with the client, plus email marketing, all integrated with the hosting platform. Plus, we can hold your hand, advise your client and yourself. If this sounds attractive, and it should do, why don't you go over to WP-Tonic/partners. WP-Tonic/partners. Fill in the short form. We can have a chat, and we offer some great partnership deals. That should sound attractive, shouldn't it? So hopefully we can partner. On we go. I want to continue where we ended in the first half of the show, Melissa. Obviously, you developed this presence in the photography industry, but I think, and I'm only surmising this, but it's based on what I've observed, I would imagine you then had the encroachment of the multiple head monster of SaaS. You had the external competition trying to muscle in to something, offering like in the membership area, we got Kajabi and we got Teachable. So obviously you had the landscape, WordPress compared to Joomla or, my God, Drupal. Obviously WordPress is much more appealing, and you offered these templates and these solutions, but then you had the SaaSes encroaching. First of all, am I on the right track? And secondly, how did you deal with these SaaSes trying kind of muscling in with maybe VC backing like Kajabi in the e-learning area? Is this making sense, or am I waffling, Melissa?
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, I'm lucky because I've kind of skirted around the edges. I make products that operate on top of other products. So I think Squarespace was quite disruptive in the photography market.
Yes.
But there are now plenty of people making Squarespace templates. So I'm not saying it doesn't concern me, because it's a huge interest. But whether you start with, it doesn't matter whether you're paying monthly, annually, or whether you buy a one-off thing, unless you buy a design to go over the top, you're pretty much starting with a blank page, whether it's Divi or Elementor, unless you either need to be a pretty good designer to make something look good, or you need to buy something to help you. So I didn't really mind how people were paying for their base tool. I would always be happy to make a product that worked with it. That said, I first, in the design space, we sell themes for a one-off cost, and photographers love that, but it is changing. So when I first started a membership, that was my first foray, not into SaaS, but certainly into a membership model. And that's been interesting to look at the figures, to get to grips with why you get churn and how to mitigate that, and how you need to keep a membership alive. That's been a really interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting because you seem to really be with the courses. You're offering the kind of WordPress solution, one-off price, like you say, but you're also offering the education and the knowledge in a price point that your photographers can afford, that goes that step further and tells them how they can market and they can utilize this great digital resource in a way that can help them.
Yeah.
Maybe that some of the SaaSes haven't been able to do that so effectively, or.
Well, yeah, I think if you are, say, Squarespace, and you're going to venture into the education world, you're going to need a department of people to do it well. Like, you get to the point where you can't just have someone just winging it, like some random member of your team winging it. You need a proper strategy, and then you need a whole team. And within the photography industry, we have had bigger companies, like a good example would be Honeybook bought a community off Facebook. Shootproof bought Cole's Classroom. They've then sold it back. So I have seen people making a foray into trying to buy an existing educator or educator's audience. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So it's hard when you're operating a big company you need a leader to lead the education offering and be passionate about it. And it's obviously very easy for me to be passionate about my own business, but I think it's hard for a big brand to have that nurturing feel.
So yeah, you talked about Squarespace, but what are some of the one or two more focused? Are there some SaaS competitors that are really focused in providing a web solution and an integrated marketing solution in the photography industry?
There are some non-WordPress ones. So PicTime have like a little mini funnel upsell downsell built in there. And there are things like Queensberry Albums and Pixie Set, which you also have a cart added so you can sell prints and things like that. But probably there isn't anyone kind of, I just don't think big companies can offer that nurturing environment very well. There's one company who I love called Showit, who are quite photography specific. They are a drag and drop, like imagine if you had Canva or Wix, but it's much more advanced than that. And they integrate WordPress they integrate a WordPress blog into what they do. They are a wonderful company. They care about their people. They've flown me over to go onto their ranch and go to their head office before. I've known them all since the beginning of whenever. So they do a really good job, but I'm pushed to think of any kind of SaaS brands where people feel a real connection with. And we're now kind of, it's interesting, we are now with our new product with Style Cloud, we are competing with Squarespace and we are competing directly with Showit because we just happen to be using Cadence to power what we do, but we're going really the extra mile on our customer service and our education. And, for me, I think that's the point of difference.
Yeah.
To handing your money over to a SaaS or handing your money over to Melissa and her team on a monthly or annual basis, I think that softens the blow when you know who you're dealing with.
Yes. Before I throw it over to Kurt, you mentioned going to all these conferences. So is now having your digital marketing side, but going to these physical conferences in the photography space, how important is this in your own mind as a pillar of your marketing outreach?
Well, it's interesting. It used to be absolutely crucial, and then along came COVID, and photographers sat at home for 2 years, like many people. But obviously, their source of income was all cancelled, and then it was all bundled. Like thousands, hundreds of thousands of people didn't get married. Then they all got married in 1 year. So photographers had a really hard time because I don't know if you know, but most photographers take a substantial deposit up front. And then the whole amount before the day. So they had a whole year where they were working like crazy people without a lot of revenue for it. They already had that money and spent it during COVID time. So it was a really, really hard time for photographers. And there wasn't a lot of money left over for going to conventions and workshops. And actually, people selling online courses did well because that was an affordable price point to continue their education and be part of a community. But now, I'd say this year, for the first time, or maybe last year, I'm seeing excitement again about people really getting together. People are a little bit more back on their feet, and I think it's going to go back to how it was to some extent. I've seen lots of kind of user figures or attendee figures, so there's definitely a bounce back happening, which I think is fantastic.
But like I say, before COVID, how important was going to these conferences in a kind of driver to your business? Did you see a direct linkage, or is it more indirect of kind of building your expertise and how more of a positioning driver than a direct driver to the bottom line, if you know what I mean?
I think it's more depends on what stage you're at. Before COVID, I would strategically pick conferences who are my exact target market and just maintain a presence there through like a minor sponsorship or a stand or speaking. So I just felt like I would cherry pick and go to 3 or 4 events. I used to do the really big conventions and have a big stand and stuff, but once we became more established online and our reputation was more, and our SEO was kind of more of a cornerstone of what we were doing, it became less important to kind of go to the big conventions. But so I now kind of cherry pick the smaller ones and have representation where people are, because at the big ones, you get people who come along and it's, someone who's a hobbyist photographer, has got a really big, long set of photography lenses and he just wants to talk about photography all day. He's not in the market for a website, like a lot of tire kickers. Whereas when I go to conventions where people are very serious, these smaller kind of boutique workshops and gatherings where that tribe is our tribe, they're quite hip, they're quite young. That's what we want, that market where, we want to be with people who are setting trends in the photography market, and the kind of big conventions don't really do it for us anymore. But I've got one in a few weeks, then I've got one in September. I love it when I do go. And you often just kind of also, you meet other speakers and you meet other suppliers, and, never underestimate the power of getting together with people and having a presence. Those kind of in-person conversations are wonderful. I mean, it's like that with WordCamp, isn't it?
Yes. All right.
If I said the right, put my foot in it.
Matters who you're talking to, doesn't it? Over to you, Kurt.
Well, my question kind of takes us back in the other direction again. It's, what would you think would be some of the, user experience design trends or things that might change or grow in 2024? Like, how do you see some of the trending that we see now, and how do you see it evolving as we go?
I think that we're going to see I think we're already seeing a resurgence of micro animations, kind of slightly more interactive websites. But I'm predicting that people are going to break out of grids. There's a real desire to have, and it's the Canva effect. People are used to being able to position things exactly where they want to, or to give the impression that they have done. So I think, the companies, the platforms that are going to win are ones which allow people more design freedom. I mean, isn't it funny? I remember saying to someone, oh, this Canva, I don't think I'll ever use that. I'm married to all my Adobe, like Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign. And then I'm in and out of Canva all day. The whole team uses it for almost everything, apart from, when we're properly designing brands, or we do use Figma, but, for graphics and quick jobs, it's become a real powerhouse. It's a huge company, huge turnover. And they are a company with real heart, actually. I love their kind of state of Canva things, their launches that they do.
So a female found, they're based in Australia, aren't they? A female. I have asked her to come on the show. I'm still waiting for a reply. But she is a powerhouse, isn't she? Her technical founder. They started it as students, actually. I think she went to over 100 VCs before somebody actually invested in the company and the vision, actually. It's quite an amazing story, really.
Yeah, and I think it has so much more influence than most people think it does. Like, it really does have a lot of influence. It lives rent-free in lots of people's minds, and people might not think they rely on it, but they really do. And when you dig under the hood, the apps they've got integrated, the AI, even the deals they've done with font houses, with font foundries, to have that range of fonts, and with Pexels, and they're doing big deals. Like, it's super impressive.
Yeah.
From a personal perspective, and I tell my clients this, I'm not really ashamed of it. You got to be honest when you're not good at something. I always looked at myself as being graphically handicapped. That's why when I started the agency, I brought on graphics people. They were the first people I talked to, because if someone doesn't give me like the color palette and a cool logo, if I have that stuff, I can make a wonderful website. But if you want me to develop from the beginning, it's really difficult. And Canva just opened up a whole world of, hey, this is easy. If I got the color palette and the logo, I can build and expand that concept really easily, which actually kind of infuriates me, because it takes the professional out of it. It's like you thought you really had an angle on something, and then you don't.
Well, so I think you say that, but I think it's a bit like AI. Like, I think with Canva and tools like AI design, you can make an adequate thing. Yeah. What you can't make is that extra missing X factor that would make somebody go, oh, this is amazing. It's just, when people ask me if I'm worried about Canva or AI, I'm like, great, makes my life a lot easier, but it doesn't threaten what I do.
Yeah, I think what it helps to avoid, Melissa, is these awful, if you are, it depends how far you are up in the food chain, but but it even happens on larger client projects. You'd be amazed. Oh, we don't want to spend any money on a logo. We don't, and we've got this logo. My niece knocked up for, and this is a 100-person organisation, and you got the CEO's niece designed a logo, and they want to use it. You'd be amazed. Or whatever. We still want to use our old logo, whatever. You can just now knock up something, and it's not the greatest, but it avoids having to get into these crazy conversations, because sometimes they listen to you and sometimes they don't. Would you agree with that?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, absolutely.
You're supposed to agree straight away, Melissa, but obviously I was just.
I thought you were talking to Kurt, actually. Sorry.
No, poor Kirk, he's used to my madness.
Jonathan doesn't like to talk to me.
No, I do. That's not true. Let's move on to AI. So I use a lot of it myself, Melissa. Love it. But it's like a two-headed monster. I think there's, obviously it's increasingly is going to be affecting various elements of business, graphic design, coding. It's obviously going to have an increasing element. But at the present moment, it's also a lot of marketing flannel out there. I know Cadence are really pushing hard in the AI, and I've got kind of mixed feelings. I totally understand why they're doing it and why Ben. I haven't played around with their latest AI solution. You can literally build a whole website. I've just got mixed feelings about the whole thing. Where do you stand about AI, and where do you think it's going in the next 18 months?
I mean, I think it's like everything. I remember when photographers stopped developing things and marking them up in the darkroom and using Photoshop, and everyone lost their minds about it. What we can't tell what's real anymore because of Photoshop. So I just think it's the next iteration of that. But saying that, let's be polite to our AI overlords in case they take over the world. But I see it as a tool. In some areas I dabble, in other areas I use it more extensively. Can a web AI be programmed to produce really beautiful layouts? I don't know. I've played around with a few of them. There's Zip WP. I've played around with the Cadence one. It produces something that I call adequate, but people don't come to me for adequate. So I think if you're in the market of providing adequate designs where you are recycling generic themes or layouts, and because you are starting off on your web design journey, I think it will make. So I always think with something like a WordPress AI like Cadence, for your average user, they don't know about hosting and domains and installing WordPress and plugins and getting to even the point where you can generate the AI generated version. Even getting to that point terrifies a lot of people. So there's still a big barrier to entry that something like Squarespace doesn't have. So if Squarespace masters AI, I think we might all be in trouble. But there's I know that Jamie Marsland is talking a lot about barriers to entry for beginners on Twitter at the moment in the kind of WordPress space, and he's right. WordPress has got a job to make things a lot easier. Like the onboarding of WordPress is still pretty clunky and pretty intimidating. The dashboard, the left menu, it's not cool if you are getting into the market. So for many, I don't think most web designers are going to be in trouble, but I think it's going to enable the DIY market who aren't scared of getting into WordPress access to more tools. Will they produce something amazing and brilliant? Let's wait and see. I don't know.
Well, it's a difficult one because you can get a bit finicky about all this, can't you? But the reality is that I haven't been here in donkey's years, but Theme Forest, somebody approached me and they got a theme, and it's a page builder as well. I forgot the name of it though, Melissa. And they got like 250,000 sales on Theme Forest or something. I haven't even heard of it. I wish I could remember. It came on my radar a couple of weeks ago. But that regularly happens. But I haven't been to Theme Forest in donkey's years, you know. But they're still, I think their glory days have declined a bit, but they're still a substantial force, bigger force than I probably realised, really. So, so there's definitely an area in this. And I've got to be honest, I think that was this, every town, I don't know if it's the same in the UK, but every small town of any population size in North America has a kind of do-it-all graphic design individual that does logos, graphics for vans, does headers, you know, does the lot, print, web design, and they work with a load. And I think that Nick and Divi knew that crowd really well, and they positioned their product really to that generalist in every small town in North America. And I think it was one of the big, I might be totally wrong here though, Melissa, I think it was one of the big drivers of Divi, because you know, the other end was Studio Press, and you had to go into functions, and it appealed to that kind of more code orientated crowd, didn't it? You know, so I might be waffling there. Back over to you. Well, I'm going to leave it to Kurt, the last question. You can do it, Kurt.
Oh my goodness. So I don't even have to ask if she knows who Doctor Who is, but let's suggest that, like Doctor Who, you have your own TARDIS and you have your own time machine. You can go back to the beginning of your business journey. What advice do you give yourself?
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, my advice would be to don't worry about what people think of you, which was something I struggled with for quite a while. I know you might not think that now, because I'm quite a confident person now, but you know, we're 10 to 15 years on, so I've kind of grown a bit more of a thick skin and find it easier to put myself out there. And the second thing I think would be to just really listen to what your audience is telling you. They will tell you what product they want, and don't sleep too long on developing products. If you're a service provider like a web designer, don't think everything's already been invented. The people who trust you want to buy your product. So, you know, coming up with a product to supplement your income. You know, there's also a couple of things, like I didn't have confidence in myself to manage a big team of people. I must have built thousands of websites and not a single one has ever gone on a care plan, because I thought I don't really like hosting, don't really like dealing with that. You know, I massively sidestepped earning a lot of money. If all of those people had put them onto hosting and care plans, I'd have a substantial monthly income, or more substantial than I have now. And so I think looking out for opportunities, what I didn't think was I didn't have the confidence I could find someone to take it off my hands, or, you know, I just didn't feel confident taking someone on. It felt too risky. So I wish I'd have been taken more risk and not dismissed other things earlier on. But, you know, we are where we are. Maybe if I'd done that, I wouldn't have had the time or the inclination to build the set of products and memberships I have now. So, you know, who knows? But yeah, listen to what people are telling you, what your audience is telling you, and don't turn down opportunities.
Nice. Well, Jonathan?
Yeah, just got a quick follow-through question, but you know, obviously, has there been an actual service kind of product plugin that you've done and you thought it was a really great idea? You got very, very enthusiastic about it, and you did it, and there was no response, just crickets. And reflecting back on it, did you work out what, you know, because obviously I can tell that you're quite an instinctive entrepreneur with good judgment, but you know, we all do something that we think the market's going to be really enthusiastic about, and then you learn quick that there is. Has that ever happened to you? And did you work out in your own mind why it fell flat a bit?
I can't think of anything that's like been a total disaster, but it's when I've hurried the process and I haven't built an audience in that niche, when I haven't got the results that I really want. It's always because I didn't put the time in to either segment the audience and send the message to the right people, or to warm them up. Like it's, you always, when I've been a bit slack on nurturing a particular niche and then I try and launch or sell something to them, they're like, haven't heard from you for a while. What, you're just popping up and trying to sell me something? So I think, that kind of nurturing of an audience, that we coach a lot of businesses through the launch process. We do funnel launch and funnel marketing for people as an agency, and we see a lot of people, and it's always when they haven't been building and nurturing their audience. So as long as people have that trust in that you're an expert, and they feel like they know you because you've been demonstrating that expertise for some time and kind of showing up regularly, then the marketing, the selling part becomes easy. So yeah. So it's always when I take my eye off the ball and I don't communicate with a certain part of my audience about certain products, then I suddenly expect people to buy it, that the results just aren't as good.
That's fantastic, Melissa. So, Melissa, really enjoyed the chat. Hopefully you'll come back later on in the year, maybe, for another one. What's the best way for people to find out more about you and your company and the products?
The best thing, our kind of main website is thedesignspace.co. But I have a Facebook group called the Design Space Lounge. I'm in there all day long, so that's where I'm kind of chatting to people. But come and find me on Facebook or Twitter. I love getting a DM, and I'm easy to find. And
Kirk, what's the best way for people to find out more about you and what you're up to, Kurt?
Well, Jonathan, LinkedIn is still my jam. So I'm the only Kurt Von Onen on LinkedIn. When you find me, you got me. Hit the connect button, and we'll connect and go from there. And then, of course, anything Mañana No Mas online leads to me.
That's fantastic. And if you want to support the show, folks, why don't you join the Membership Machine Show Facebook group? We have a great group of people looking to build a membership community website, plus a WordPress crowd. Love you to join us there. We will be back next week with another great, I think it's going to be our roundtable show next week. We've got some great guests, panelists. Should be a great discussion. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.